Well, welcome everyone to VEB Podcast. Viva Birdos here with, I'm not sure what we want to call this, a super mega awesome super edition. With five of us are here today for the big trade deadline special. Huge news broke over the last couple days that we'll be talking about. But I thought, first of all, I'll just give everyone a chance to introduce yourselves. Most of you will be some of you will be watching on YouTube, but some of you are probably listening on the podcast apps. So everyone say hi. I'm JP Hill, Jason Hill, you can call me over at the site. And left to right, go ahead, guys.
I'm Gabe, STL Cards Fan 4 for people who don't know my real name, but I think everybody does. And next person up.
Yeah, I'm Blake, guys. It's nice to, be here breaking down the trade deadline. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Jones. Everybody knows me on the website as Skyrick ESQ. It's nice to be here and meet everybody.
So I've got to ask you, Sky, is it Skyrick ESQ or is it Skyrise?
Yeah. Well, it was designed as Skyrick ESQ.
Yeah.
It's just Skyrise just sort of I think Nate DeGraff sort of coined that one. But Skyrick came from an old gamer tag I used to use, and I just threw ESQ on the end of it. It's not really that creative, but that's how it evolved.
Sure. And then last but not least, certainly.
Yeah, it's me, Heather. You probably are all used to hearing my voice at some point. So I don't really see this from left to right. So I was like, hopefully
I didn't either. I didn't want to interrupt
different screens.
Yeah,
different screens. We're already off to a roaring start for that.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, there she is, our first cat. All right. Well, hey, huge trade deadline news. Cards extremely active, more active really than we've seen in a long time, honestly. 2011 maybe the last time that they had moves of this significance, and we thought it might be just sort of good to start with our transaction guru, our own major league expert in all things roster mechanics, Skyrick. What happened? What did we just see? What took place?
Okay, so everything really started. I think really to set it up, you have to start with July 30th, actually.
Yeah.
Because before then, we had a couple of rotation members out of there, and we really had like a theoretical 10-man pen. Still had a full 40-man roster, but on July 30th, we traded infielder Edmundo Sosa to the Phillies for left-handed reliever Jojo Romero and option Romero to AAA Memphis. So the 40-man roster was still full after that. But at the same time, and really that's one of the transactions that really I think forms the face of the new team, so to speak, is they decided to recall Paul DeYoung from his 2-month stint with AAA Memphis, and that completely really reshaped the infield and the active roster. They also activated Dakota Hudson from the 15-day injured list and gave him the start that night. And then James Nail was optioned to make room. He was sent to AAA Memphis. So at that point, we still had 4 guys in the rotation and 9-man bullpen. And then all of a sudden, late last night, everything started to come into place. So they traded Johan Oviedo and AA first baseman Malcolm Nunez to the Pittsburgh Pirates for left-handed starter Jose Quintana and right-handed reliever Chris Stratton. That required a 40-man roster trim because Oviedo came off, and then they added Quintana and Stratton came on. So they designated Austin Romine for assignment last night because when you can't go over 40. And so they had to make that roster move. Now that move was sort of planned anyway because we knew Yachty was coming back. But that still put the roster at 40. And then today, just before the deadline, we traded center fielder Harrison Bader to the New York Yankees for left-handed starter Jordan Montgomery. So that's still a full 40-man roster. And then there were other moves that had to flow from that. Austin Romine was traded to the Reds for cash considerations. But he was already taken off the roster when he was DFA'd last night.
Yeah, a post DFA move. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then we had to activate Yadier Molina from the 10-day injured list, and he's on the lineup tonight. So that required them to trim a pitcher because you can only have 13 pitchers, and the addition of Stratton and Quintana would have put them at 14. So they optioned Junior Fernandez. And then so Quintana and Stratton are on the roster and available tonight. Jordan Montgomery has not yet reported. So for when a trade happens, you have time to typically like up to 72 hours to report to your new team. So whenever he joins the Cardinals, they'll have to make another active roster move to accommodate him. And then there was another trade that we traded, but it didn't affect the 40-man or active rosters. We traded an A-ball reliever named Carlos Guarade to the Oakland Athletics for a AAA catcher named Austin Allen. Now, the interesting thing about the trade deadline stuff is, number one, usually the trade deadline is July 31st. But, so on years, and in the rules, in years past, it said that if the July 31st falls on a Sunday, the trade deadline would be on Monday, August the 1st. But there's a new rule now that says the commissioner has the authority to establish the trade deadline on any day over the 7-day period from July 28th through August 3rd. And so the commissioner just chose August 2nd at 6 p.m. Eastern. So the trade with, if we wanted that backup catcher, Austin Allen, even we had to have done it by today, because now the trade deadline is firm. Used to be, really it wasn't a firm trade deadline. If you didn't trade somebody before the deadline, you could still make trades after that, but you had to pass the player through what was called trade assignment waivers. And that was an impossibly complicated process. The waivers were revocable, or you could let them go. The Cardinals in 2018 actually got Matt Adams and Tyson Ross on trade assignment waivers that year. And that was the last time that was allowed, because after that season, trade assignment waivers were abolished. But the rule also covers players that had signed a major league contract, were on a 40-man roster, and had been outrighted. So those people are, even though they're not on the major league roster now, you still can't trade those people after the deadline anymore. So Austin Allen, the catcher we got, had been outrighted earlier this season by the Athletics. So he would have been covered by that rule. So that if they wanted him, they had to get that done today.
Can you ever remember a series of that many transactions in the course of 24 hours? Besides like your normal, like rule 5 things and, stuff like that from a trade perspective. I can't remember a time when the Cardinals made that many trades and that many mechanics for this many number of players all at once.
There was a lot in 2018, I want to say, when we did the Tommy Pham trade. But it's been a little bit since there was this kind of flurry with this many.
Yeah. Well, hey man, you're on top of it, and that's awesome content. You're not going to get that anywhere else. I'm telling you what. That's just,
it was helpful for
Sky
me. It was helpful for me because I didn't know half of the trades that had happened. I was keeping my eye on a couple of them, and then I was listening to the game on my way home, and they said something about Oviedo being traded to the Pirates. I was like, when did that happen? Apparently yesterday. My bad.
The Pirates optioned him, so they decided to option him. So he's not even on their active roster right now. Really, the interesting thing is going to be, when Montgomery joins the rotation, and I'd be interested to get all of your take on that. Is what pitcher do they trim? Do they DFA McFarland? Do they option Thompson? And who between Hudson and Palante is going to take that, final rotation job?
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and jump into that. You don't want to necessarily rank these, but it seems like probably the biggest move the Cardinals did make, involving the most significant major league pieces, debatably, arguably, because I'd actually take Jose Quintana over Jordan Montgomery, but that's another conversation. But it is that second deal, that trade deadline deal. Last minute, I don't think anyone, Gabe mentioned this, I don't think anyone expected this one or predicted this one. Left-handed starter Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader and a potential player to be named later. Who here had Harrison Bader on the IL being traded to the Yankees?
Who had him being traded?
Yeah,
Period.
traded at all. Right.
I
Yeah.
think I had heard a few like people theorize that he might be traded, but I figured he was pretty safe since he was injured.
Yeah.
But I saw him in trades for
I
like,
thought that was just
I saw him in trades for like Juan Soto, which I was like, no.
Yeah.
right. Well,
I
and
was-
like I thought that was just fan talk where it's like, we'll trade Bader, and it's like how where people just say trade this person, they're bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but how are you going to trade them if they're bad? If they're not bad,
Right.
who would want them? Who
Yeah.
would want to trade for them?
Well, and
And he's
trading,
not
it
bad,
is
but-
interesting that
but,
trading somebody on the injured list is legal. The last time I can, and you don't have to. So, like during the season, you can't put somebody in outright assignment waivers that's injured, unless you certify that they've recovered from their injury and can play to their normal capability. But you can very much trade somebody on the injured list. The last time I can remember that happening off the top of my head was in the Colby Rasmus trade back in 2011. They traded Brian Talent. He was on the injured list. It's just not very common.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Cardinals acquired Masterson when he was on the injured list.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think
or
he
the-
was still on the the DL then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because I just remember this article that Aaron Fink wrote about it, calling him like not the low hanging fruit, but the something pie. I can't remember, but it was a long time ago. But it was just very charming and funny. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to go look that up later.
I did
But
toss
yeah,
around.
that's how I remember.
Yeah, I did toss around a little bit kind of mentally and on Twitter. I don't think I mentioned it. Maybe I brought it up in a comment or section too. Probably not though. That Tyler O'Neill seemed like a possibility as a trade partner, just because they didn't reach a long-term deal with them on like an arbitration buyout deal, and kind of having a disappointing season. Burleson's down in Triple E. Could kind of make a case that maybe O'Neill would move, but I never really saw that very likely. But I never anticipated Bader being moved. And honestly, I didn't really know much about Jordan Montgomery. I don't follow the AL very much. I don't watch the Yankees very much. I'll just go ahead and admit that I'm an NL guy. I write for the Cardinals. I don't write about the Yankees. So, but yeah, tell me about Jordan Montgomery, guys. What's your reaction to that?
I liked it a lot. I thought the Cardinals needed two starters, and as the time was inching closer to that 6:00 Eastern, I was kind of concerned you're going to come away with just one. But one of the things that stuck out with me, was I was just looking over some of his numbers after we got him, is that his sinker usage is much, much higher than it's been throughout his career, and it's been much more effective than it's been throughout his career.
Yeah.
So obviously that sticks out for the Cardinals, I'm sure, just being a team that targets sinker ballers. But he's gotten a lot of arm side run on that sinker, and it's I think 25% above average movement when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it looks like the better results are here to stay. So I'm excited by the move. I think like I said, I think we definitely needed two, and that feels like he can kind of fill that Steven Matz role.
Yeah. His ground ball rate is up 46.4%. Looking at it here on Fangraphs, up from 42.7 last year.
Yeah.
It's only 4 innings. So, his early career is just so long ago and so different. But yeah, definitely sort of a pitcher in transition. He looks like every other Cardinals pitcher that they've either targeted or drafted. It seems like over the last 2 seasons. A control lefty with some ability, it looks like, to get some whiffs. I bet his strikeout numbers are down a little bit, primarily because he's shifting that sinker and not getting as much swing and misses on that sinker, would be my guess.
Yeah.
He's also in the Tommy John fraternity, so he fits right in with our whole pitching staff.
Yeah. 114 innings. He's been a workhorse this season. 157 last year and 30 starts. Where do we slide him into the rotation? Like, where would I know there'll be he'll pitch whenever he can, and that's where he'll fit. But if you had to rank him in order, where do you guys put Montgomery?
He's after obviously Michaelis and Wainwright, and Quintana's got technically the best stats of everybody. So he's pretty easily fourth for me, but it's a very good fourth because if you look at his career, I wanted to see because you look down the WAR totals are not impressive because he's been injured a lot.
Yeah.
For his career, he's averaged 2.6 WAR for 150 innings pitched, and he's on pace for 172 this year, which would make him for his career. If he did 170 innings, it'd be 2.9. But that's obviously not what he's on pace for right now. But yeah, he's just a very solid pitcher, dependable when healthy. Sounds like a Cardinals pitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I saw floating around Twitter, and I might have probably saw this at the Viva Birdos comments too, about the deal, is that there are some people talking about how they expected his stats to get better playing in front of our defense. And I wanted to ask you guys about that because the Yankees got a pretty good defense too, if I understand that. Do you anticipate that, or is that not something that we can look forward to in this case?
Maybe the part.
But I was just going to say that. Is it so much the defense as it is Busch Stadium?
Yeah.
I don't even
there would
know
be a big
what
difference
hand
between
he pitches with.
Yankee Stadium and Busch. That would be a huge difference.
Be a lefty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suspected he was a lefty. I don't know why he sounded like a left-handed pitcher. I was like, I don't know anything about this guy. Was he left-handed, right-handed?
Yeah.
Left-handed.
Lefty, 29 years old, under contract for next year. Arb eligible for next year, not under contract yet, but he'll probably get a pretty hefty raise next year. Free agent 2024.
Yeah, I think the park will help. I know they've done some studies on, like building up Ballpark Village and how that's affected left-handed hitting. So I just wonder if that would help suppress some of any, any home runs that he might allow in Yankees Stadium that they won't go out in Busch Stadium.
Yeah, because his home runs, he's got not that higher, but a higher FIP than XFIP, which controls for homers. And this homer to fly ball rate is 13.8%. So you would expect that to go considerably down at Busch Stadium, I think.
Yeah, probably. That's not like, well, the problem with that, because I looked into that a couple times with like Nicholas, who's carried a really low homer per fly ball rate before, and to see if there's other examples of that. And part of the problem with looking at that is some of the other examples are guys like Hudson, who is a sinker baller, but is also prone to give up a lot of home runs. So, and then it's like Wainwright and Carpenter. Well, yeah, you'd expect those guys to have a minuscule home run rate per fly ball. So, yeah, you would think it would drop a little bit just moving from Yankee Stadium to Busch. And Busch does repress right-handed power, which honestly, I don't know if everyone's been paying attention, but between Quintana and Montgomery and all the guys they took in the draft and Thompson and Liberatore, I mean, we were becoming a left-handed, that's what they want. They clearly want. It's not some accident now. They're clearly targeting left-handed pitchers. And I got to think that home run rate is the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part, too, is we saw that in the draft. There were a ton of lefties that came off the board, too. So you got to wonder if that's a long-term plan in there, if that was just coincidental. But
yeah, you would say coincidental, but then last year Lester was Happ a righty. I think Happ was a righty, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was.
Righty. He just seems like he should be left-handed.
He seemed like he should have been a lefty. Yeah.
He should be left-handed. He is inexplicably.
Yeah, inexplicably right-handed. And then this year two lefties, or maybe it's a market inefficiency they're targeting. It's really hard to say, but I mean, it's too much coincidence to think that
J-Happ is left-handed, by the way, guys.
Who is?
Oh,
Happ is.
Just by the way,
I've already kind of blocked Happ out.
Made sure.
To be honest. Okay, so Bader's going in this. It's a surprise. What's your take on that, Gabe? Why don't you tell us? I know your dad is a huge Bader fan. So
oh yeah.
How's that going over in the Simmons household?
It's not well. He immediately, like, after he started getting kind of angry, but not like yelling angry. And then he decided because he mentioned the Ozuna trade for some reason. I was like, those aren't even like it's not comparable at all. There's no way that we're gonna regret Bader like Alcantara. So yeah, he's not, handling well, but I guess they're all in on Carlson in center field, which I'm not completely for, but it's not like there was a great center field option in the market. Now I'm curious if they stick with Carlson in center beyond this year, or even like if they try to search for something, but we'll see.
Yeah. Bader, I think, is going to make an interesting case study as a Cardinal because he was promoted early. I don't mean promoted to the majors. I mean like the Cardinals made a big deal out of him, put him in a lot of ads and featured on specials and things like that. And despite being one of the most impressive defenders we've seen in a long time from the outfield, some people loved him, some people didn't like his flair. I've always thought that odd. Like you love Jim Edmonds, but you didn't love Harrison Bader. I mean, it's just, do we love flary players or do we not? It seems to be a little schizophrenic there, but seems to be mixed opinions about Bader and his time with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough not to like the defense that he brought. And that's actually one of the things I thought that was interesting too, was you see the Cardinals draft or bringing in a lot of guys, lower strikeout rates, higher control, but then trading a guy like Bader and then getting rid of a guy like Edmundo Sosa, who admittedly didn't play that much. But
yeah,
the defense has gotten a little bit worse. I don't think that's going to be a huge factor. But it will be a little disappointing to not see Bader in center field, but I think it was necessary to upgrade in the rotation. And I'm encouraged by Carlson, but like Gabe, I'm a little I want to see more before I'm ready to fully commit to him as a center fielder.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask, how is he like looked in center field? I haven't really gotten a chance to watch very much. I have to like kind of listen to them, so I don't see him out there.
The funny thing about Carlson in center is it depends on sort of what metric that you look at. Outs above average from StatCast doesn't really like him that much. You can notice the difference, right? Yeah. Something with Bader, and it's a ball deep in the gap that was close to the wall. Bader would settle under it. Carlson might catch one of those every now and again, but he's like running as fast as he possibly can and catches it at the last second. Those are the kind of differences. He's got a really nice arm. There are some metrics that you can look at will tell you that he's okay. The one, the outfield above average one that has, the more sophisticated, location data involved with it will tell you that he's really not that great. But it just depends on what you look at.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about that, I definitely agree with you, is that he looks better this year in center than he did last year. And I haven't checked the outs above average data in the last week or so. So it can shift pretty fast, especially because he was like right around neutral, maybe like +1 overall in center this season in a tiny sample size. So it's basically irrelevant. But then last year he was pretty sketchy in center. Right. And so to the eye test, he looks more comfortable in center, which makes sense. A 23-year-old, his second year playing out there, but at the same time, it's hard for me to see him. A lot of players or a lot of people, not players, fans have been talking about him being above average, and some people even saying he looks even better than Bader. I don't see that at all.
No.
You're missing the speed is what's happening there. You're equating the speeds, and what Carlson does have is arguably softer hands, and because he's slower, he's a little bit better going back than Bader does. Because when Bader goes back, he's there. So I think right now average is a good starting point, a good upside for him defensively in center, and then we don't know how long he's going to stay there, but you would think it would be ticking down a little bit as he begins to fill out a little bit more and loses a little more athleticism as he goes through the rest of his career.
I like the trade, but I'm a little bit, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about center field. You can sort of paper over something for a year, but they don't really have, a whole lot in the pike. In AAA, they've got Scott Hurst, who's already been up here, and he's somebody that you might roster in a dire emergency. I don't think as excited as some people are about Ben DeLuzio. I really don't think he's going to be a thing. He'll be 29. We got him in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. And, he's another one of those emergency guys. But you really wonder who the center fielder of the future will be. And I don't know, maybe they're doing this because right now the front office thinks it's Carlson. I really wonder if that's ultimately going to turn out that way, though.
Yeah. Would you guys agree, Blake, Gabe? Probably Baez would be
he's so
best
far away.
rated center
he's
fielder.
too far. He's way too far
Well,
away.
that's what I mean. But
Yeah.
I mean, like, who do they have between Carlson and Baez that you think could be a starting caliber player at the major league level that can play center? I can't think of anyone. I mean, Mike Antico is not going to be a starter, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's interesting, but probably not a starter.
Right. Yeah. Burleson, obviously not. They're not going to move Wynn. Kyle Reese has got his really fun thing about Jordan Walker, but that's just no, not very likely. It's just fun. So,
I mean, Newbar's fast. That's I don't know.
I mean, O'Neill's played a great left field too, but it just like we haven't really seen them put him in center field yet. So
no, I'm surprised by that, but yeah.
Yeah, so am I. I feel like he might be able to play it well, but he's just been kind of anchored in left. So I don't even know if that's really in the plans.
I mean, even if he's like bad in center, I feel like his speed is going to paper over a lot of potential issues that like Carlson would not would have a bigger issue with because he's kind of slow for a center fielder.
Yeah.
He's too muscular to play center field. The rule is when you look like that, you have to play left field. It doesn't matter how fast you are.
Yeah. Well, there might be something to that too, because in left, he goes all out anyway. But if he was sprinting all the time, diving all the time, which he's prone to do, I was going to say you could see
seems kind of injury prone.
Yeah.
So I don't know if center field would exacerbate that.
Yeah.
Is he safer in left field? Because he also seems to do some reckless things in left field.
We say this as he just makes this. Dylan Carlson just makes a sliding catch to end the inning, right?
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
He's listening to the pod while he while playing outfield, multitasking. Okay, so a little consensus here. Sounds like we all like Montgomery and where he slips in. We're all a little nervous about what that means for center field. And we're particularly nervous about what it means for center field going forward beyond this season, or if Carlson, God forbid, got hurt, they would have some issues. So, all right, let's move up to the next one, the earlier deal. Left-handed starter Jose Quintana. I would say Tana, it's Tana. And Chris Stratton for Oviedo and Malcolm Nunez. Let's start with Quintana. It seems like the Cardinals have been in on him 3 or 4 times in the past, and they finally landed him. What are you guys' thoughts on Jose Quintana? Another former Cub.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I was kind of surprised when I put up his numbers and saw that he had like 2.1 WAR on the season.
Yeah.
Like I'd known he'd been solid with the Pirates, so that number just felt a little bit higher than I was expecting. So I'm excited to actually put him in the rotation.
Yeah, he technically, I'd have to go back and look at my own tweet, but I'm pretty sure that he has the highest WAR of any of the Cardinals starters, and it's point. Well, I mean, you're talking about points, but I think it was 0.1 higher than Evie Frankie Montes, who was one of the targets that everyone wanted him to go for. So you could have done a lot worse there. I mean, really.
Although Wainwright's going to surpass him after this game.
Oh yeah, well I hope so. It's got ways to go. I think Wainwright's down there a little bit. So
sorry,
like half a WAR a day, but I'll take it. Sure.
I forgot Michaelis was the one that was right next to him.
Yeah.
He'd have to have a hell of a game, though.
Yeah, he would.
He's got Yachty back.
Yeah, I got Yachty back. You never know. Yeah. We got to, by the way, we got to add that to our list. We got to talk about Yachty being back here at the end of the podcast. So what do we expect from him? Another guy, almost identical stats, frankly, to Jordan Montgomery, just a little bit older. A K per 9 and around 8, walk per 9 under 3, 3.5 ERA, 3.23 FIP. So it's possible if he keeps that up that his ERA would drop even more into the 2s in Busch. I don't know if that's likely or not, but there hasn't been a Cardinal starter in a long time that didn't carry an ERA below his FIP. And here Quintana's reversed on that, and as Gabe said, 2.1 FWAR. So, what have you guys seen from him? I know you've seen. I bet a lot of you have seen him over the years. I remember watching him earlier in the year, but I didn't pay a lot of attention, obviously. What should we expect from him at 33 years old?
I mean, I've only really seen him when he's faced the Cardinals, and recently that was been with the Cubs when he was a little diminished or whatever.
Yeah.
Just speaking to like his stats, at least, he's a different case than Montgomery in the sense that I don't know what the Pirates' defense is, infield defense specifically, but I would guess ours is better. But he's not going to benefit from any home run luck because his is fairly low.
Yeah.
He's 7% home run to fly ball rate. I don't think you can hope for much better than that, even at Busch. So maybe he was able to drop because of the defense, though. I know that, sometimes errors, but.
Did you have a chance to look him at all, Blake, with the StatCast numbers or anything?
Yeah, so I mean, he's interesting. I mean, as you would expect for like a 33-year-old pitcher, his fastball rate's kind of dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's throwing like just above 90, so he'll fit right in with the rest of the rotation. But he's throwing more like kind of off-speed breaking stuff. Like his changeup rate has shot up, which is actually interesting.
24% on that changeup rate's the highest it's been ever by far.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like his fastball averages around 90 miles per hour. His changeup's like 86. It's one of the harder changeups in the league.
Yeah, it is.
So it really doesn't change speeds that much. And he throws a lot of curveballs too. So he's pretty much, I think, close to 50-50 on fastballs versus kind of off-speed breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And
it looks like just from a pitch value standpoint, it's his curveball and his fastball too. Get a lot of production on his fastball, but his curveball is the thing that really has the highest value this year.
Carlson just homered, by the way.
Did he?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
You guys are ahead of me. Just spoil it. It hasn't happened yet. It's still
I'll tell you
0-2.
what. You said Carlson, right?
Yeah, Carlson.
Yeah. He is due for some home runs. I know that he's not, I know about the exit velocity and all that stuff, but just a home run per fly ball rate, he's been due for a long time for some more.
What other negative things can we say to reverse jinx?
Yeah, keep him going.
Yeah, right. Yes. He's ugly. He's too tall. What do you know?
Right. He's going to like grow even taller.
Yeah.
The thing about Quintana, at one time he was remarkable for his consistency.
Yeah.
From 2013 through the 2019 season, he started at least 30 games and pitched at least 170 innings. And then 2020, he had some unfortunate issues. One of them was a dishwashing accident where he severed a tendon, and then he didn't really pitch much in 2020 at all. And then in last year, he was used in the bullpen for the first time since his rookie year. But if looks like this year, he's sort of got it back on track.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, at least he's demonstrated that he can give you some badly needed innings. And, even if he's league average in that role, that has some value.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the dishwashing injury? Because I'm very curious about that one.
I remember
that.
Fall, like putting a plate in or what?
Yeah, he cut himself. He severed a tendon in his thumb while he was, I don't know whether it was like putting it in or taking it out, but somehow he managed to really screw up his thumb really bad, and it cost him like the whole season.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
Okay.
One of the things I think is hilarious about Quintana is like, when is the last time we talked about a pitcher reviving his career in Pittsburgh? Like, I feel like Chris Archer wants a word here.
Right. Right. Yeah. He seems like the kind of guy that, honestly, he's 33 years old. We could see him hanging around, maybe not to Rich Hill levels at 42, but 36, 37, and he's probably just going to hang around as a league average or slightly below, pitcher for a long time. I wouldn't mind seeing him bring him back next year. I'd have to look at the way the rotation kind of shakes out with Montgomery in the picture now, but he's the kind of guy that could hold up the back of a rotation spot in a contending rotation for a long time.
It'll probably cost us a little more than, he signed with the Pirates for a $2 million deal. Now, maybe some of that was the lockout and it was one of the last minute things, but we got, if you take a look, if you compare that to some of, like we got Nick Whitgren for 1.2,
Verhagen's like 2.1 or something, right? Something like that annual. Yeah.
It's Verhagen was 2 years, $5.5 million deal.
So even more than that. Yeah.
So, the Pirates definitely got a steal on a 1 year deal. Now, I guess they'll probably want more than that next year if the Cards tried to re-sign him. But even if they didn't, I still like that deal for this year.
Yeah. So in the deal, Chris Stratton also comes over. We've seen Stratton a lot with the Pirates. He's got a little bit of experience closing, sort of a mid to late inning reliever, mid to high leverage. Not such a great ERA, but the rest of his peripherals and stats look pretty good. Where do we think he's going to slide into the bullpen picture?
I'd like to see him in sort of the longer relief, or the couple innings at a time kind of guy. Stratton to me is a real interesting acquisition because he was a starter for a long time and he's a starter's complement of pitches.
Yeah.
He's got like 5 pitches, which is necessary, but he's not the fire breathing, 99 mile an hour fastball, 90 mile an hour slider kind of guy. But he can throw a bunch of innings. He keeps people off base a little bit, keeps the ball on the ground. I think he could be a really good piece for us, but I'd like to, if a starter gets knocked out in the 5th, I'd like to see him pitch 2 or 3 innings.
Yeah. Kind of basically the same role, maybe that who he's replacing that Johan Oviedo was in, maybe the role that like Whitgren was originally targeted for. Now obviously Whitgren's no longer with the club, but they need someone that can be effective there in the middle innings and go a couple innings at a time.
Yeah, especially with Oviedo gone and Junior Fernandez sent back down, like it kind of feels like there's that right-handed void that could be filled.
Yeah. And we'll see how long Fernandez is down. That seems like more like a roster necessity than anything else. I think I really like what I've been seeing out of Fernandez. I had admittedly low expectations for him. I didn't think we'd really ever see him again, but he doesn't look like the same pitcher to me. So speaking of Oviedo, are we sad to see Oviedo go? I kind of liked Oviedo. I thought he had a little something there for a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he looked like he could be a nice, good reliever there. But and then there was that story about him driving to Miami and then up to Minnesota showers. And then I don't know, did he even pitch since that day? Because I don't know if he did.
I don't think so.
I don't think he did. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Anyway,
he's also gigantic, which was interesting just because he's physically huge. So I was always interested in seeing like what that. I mean, not what that could become because he kind of is what he's going to be, but he's a physically imposing guy and coming out of the bullpen. I just thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I am kind of bummed just because I thought he can really be, and he's probably will go on to have at least maybe one of those random seasons where he's an all-star and then never again type of thing.
Yeah,
I could see that happening.
I think he does have the stuff, like the movement on his pitches has always really impressed me. And but and then he'll go through these stretches where he can command those pitches for strikes, and then he just won't. He just can't. And it just things blow up on him, and then that continued down in AAA for a couple season and a half too. But I always kind of wondered, now what would happen if they just took away that extra inning where things fell apart and just had 1 or 2 innings at a time, just stuck with that. And I think we're kind of trying to get a taste of that. And have any of you guys seen, are they going to try him in the rotation over there, or are they going to leave him in the bullpen? Any word on that yet?
There was if you look on the Twitter page of the beat writer that covers the Pirates, he said they are thinking about him in the rotation. They haven't completely made up their mind yet. Oviedo did pitch once since that driving spree. He closed out the July 30th game where we lost 7-6 to the Nationals. But other than that, Oviedo's an easy guy to like, and also an easy guy to feel sorry for a little bit because he got pressed into service in 2020, well before I think everyone agrees he was ready. In a normal season, that wouldn't have happened. He would have been allowed to just go to the next level. And I think if I can point to any one person that the pandemic really affected that the Cardinals had, it was him. Now, he did get to pitch, which is some of our other prospects didn't get to do, but really he got pressed into service in 2020 and 2021 when ideally he would have just been allowed to do his thing and just get better and grow. And he gave it his best effort. He showed some flashes. But I think he's a little bit of a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good luck to the Pirates trying him in the rotation if that's what they decide to do, because it kind of feels like the bullpen was the right role for him, especially this year. He
Yeah.
never really had great results in even AA or AAA in the rotation. So
No.
he'll
And the
probably
Cardinals had that luxury of just moving of the bullpen and just pretending like he wouldn't have worked out any other way. The Pirates probably, I can understand why the Pirates would give it a shot, for
yeah.
another year just to get a look at him yourself before you make
Yeah.
the move. But the other player involved in that, Malcolm Nunez, player I'm somewhat familiar with. I don't know that all of the audience would be. Any of you comfortable talking about him very much? Blake, anybody?
Yeah, I mean he's kind of a bigger power guy, and he's
Yeah.
weird because when you watch him play, he doesn't look. You just look at him; he doesn't look super athletic. But then I've seen like Kyle Reese give some videos of him, and he's making some pretty athletic plays in the field. And overall, I mean, he's a pretty nice prospect, pretty good hitter, but he's just kind of blocked in St.
Yeah.
Louis. I mean,
Is there any chance that he could have stuck at third base with that athleticism?
I mean, maybe I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think he's been used more at first base this season.
He has.
Pretty much
Yeah.
overwhelmingly first base.
Yeah, so I
So
feel like
they've already given up on that.
yeah, and I mean, even if he did stick at third with the Cardinals, that's just not going to work with
No.
everybody in there. So
Yeah. It
I think
seemed
some
like
people soured on him, because he had that preposterous season in 2018.
huge
where it
season
was
with the Dominican League, wasn't it?
Dominican. It was 415, 497, 774 triple slash. And then he
Yeah.
really, until this year, at the other levels, he didn't really hit much after that at all.
Yeah.
So I think there was some people that had outsized expectations based on that DSL season. And you never really know. The DSL is a crapshoot. You don't really, a lot of the pitching isn't that good. Some people it's just a men among the boys situation where they're way so far ahead. Maybe they probably didn't even belong there to begin with. You can't really read anything into one of those rookie ball DSL type deals, but it really wasn't until this season where it looked like he started to show flashes of what he showed in 2018, where he upped his walk rate a lot and showed the power that hadn't really been seen in about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
That's because he's been, I mean, theoretically, absurdly young for his level up to this point, where he probably wasn't ready for whatever he's playing at. The Cardinals have kept testing him to his limit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe not, though. Maybe he's just what he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's still 21 years old. He's made some really nice gains with his walk rate. His power is looking really good this year. Like, I think he's a big league player at some point.
Yeah.
A regular or a big league player, I don't know, but he's a nice player.
It's interesting to me, the Cardinals, their approach to the trade deadline and other moves. If you think about the last couple of moves that they've made from Arenado kind of forward, a little bit with Lester and Happ last year, but they seem to make quite a bit of mileage out of sort of no longer prospects, not really established major leaguers. If you think about Johan Oviedo this season, Austin Gomber, in the Arenado trade. Some guys, John Gant, he doesn't really qualify, but he working as a starter. What was John Gant? But then also these sort of superfluous, corner infielders that with Goldschmidt and Arenado well established as future Hall of Famers. I'm just going to go ahead and start referring to Goldschmidt as future Hall of Famer, Paul Goldschmidt. Montero, Nunez. There might be a few others that I'm missing in there, but
Otto, right?
I
mean, he's not corner outfield, but we traded him because he was a surplus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And been able to make some deals out of these guys that, they might make the majors, but they really had no future with this Cardinals team.
Yeah.
Look at Luke and Baker might be the kind of guy that they might, try to do the same thing. Luke Voigt, they're just guys that don't have roles here, but they've been able to turn them into real talent. And that's pretty impressive. A lot of teams don't value corner players of that kind, but the Cardinals are making their hay out of it.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, I saw a couple people try to argue that they thought the cost for Quintana was just too high. And yeah, I think, again, he's a 2-WAR pitcher right now. Nunez was blocked. Oviedo's a reliever. I'm perfectly fine with that kind of a return.
Yeah. So let's talk about the rotation. Rotation is done. There's 6 starters now, based on who's in the rotation right now, not counting like Liberatore or dropping down a little bit. Who do we expect to be the 5 guys that go forward over the next month for the Cardinals? Well, Miklas. I'll start with the first one since there's 5 of us. I'll start with Miklas. I think Miklas will be in there. Anyone else have a second one?
Maybe Wainwright.
Wainwright. Okay, so there's Wainwright. There's 2. But how about the rest of it? We know Quintana, Montgomery, they're going to slide in there somewhere. Who's going to be the 5th starter?
All right, well, I'll tell you what I think they will do, which is different than what I would like them to do. So I may be in the minority, but I've always preferred Hudson in the bullpen. I mean, I understand why, they put him in the rotation, because, he kept the ball on the ground. He had been a starter. He had a strong arm. To me, he's just got too many walk issues. He's been treading the line for so long.
Yeah,
I think he'd probably be really good as what Whitey Herzog used to call a jam pitcher, somebody that you can come in with men on base, get you a ground ball to get out of it. One thing that's been really, striking lately is that he used to have a pitch that really was a cutter, that was more along the 88, 89 variety that had a much sharper bite to it and would be very appealing because it would be in the bottom of the zone, but then dart out of it. But now he's ditched that for this more sweeping 83 mile an hour slider. And it just doesn't seem to be working that well. I'd prefer both Hudson and Palante in the bullpen. I would have preferred if somebody like Thompson or Liberatore could have stepped up to that role this year. But what I think they'll do is because, of the experience and the seniority, if for no other reason, is they'll put Palante in the bullpen and leave Hudson in the rotation. But given the 2 and most recent performance, I would actually put Palante there over Hudson. But I don't think that they'll do that. I hope I'm wrong.
Can they afford to play around with that though at this point? That's where I agree with you, Mike, that I think that's what they will do, but it's August. And Hudson it's not true. And if Hudson, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, buddy. But it feels like Hudson hasn't missed a bat since June. And at some point you got to generate whiffs, you got to get Ks. And Palante is not the best at that, but he's actually improved his whiff rate and his K rate as a starter, which it should have gone the other way. But he's such a young player that we don't even know what Palante really is at this point. And he's only kind of gotten his ERA has climbed, but I think we all expected that. But he's really only gotten more consistent, and his peripherals have only gotten better as he's progressed through the season. And I know, Blake, you're going to agree because you just wrote about this today.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I too think that Dakota Hudson's probably going to end up in the rotation. Honestly, if not for the reason that Palante was already so successful in the bullpen, I think that might weigh into the Cardinals' decision a little bit because, that just feels like a move that they would make would just be bumping him back there. But I absolutely think Palante is the better option in the rotation. I'd like to see him throw that curveball for strikes more, but his stuff's just overall better than Hudson. And, Hudson literally has a 12.8% walk rate or strikeout rate and a 10.4% walk rate. Those are way too close to each other. He's treading a fine line. I don't want to risk that.
That's Jake Westbrook level stuff, except he's not 34 with 12 years of experience. It's not tenable. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't want to see that try to be sustainable for a month because I don't see that going super well.
Yeah, and Gabe, I know you're pro Hudson, so you don't even have to give your opinion. So.
I was going to point out their 8 most recent starts for both. For Palante, in 8 starts, he's thrown 45 innings, struck out 34, walked 10. He has a 4.60 ERA, 4.07 FIP, 3.19 xFIP. So he's been a little snake bitten by the home run. If you look at Hudson, though, it's a lot uglier. 8 starts, 42 innings, 20 Ks, 19 walks.
Yeah.
5.95 ERA, 5.17 FIP, 5.27 xFIP. So those are some ugly stats right there. He's not getting better. Palante is. So I would definitely try to move Hudson to the bullpen and try to see what Palante can do because I feel like we kind of know what Hudson can do and not really a fan of that.
There was a time where I was tracking how many batters Hudson had hit, because there was a point where he had hit more batters than innings he pitched. It was like really early on. It was like 11 hit batsmen in 9 innings or something like that. But I was like, oh, I wonder how long this can keep going.
So it's like the
So
opposite of Edmundo Sosa.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Right. At least when you said he hasn't missed a bat, I was like, I wonder if he's missed a person. Let's see.
Maybe you should try
Good
hitting
luck.
people again. That might help them.
Yeah.
Don't walk them, just
Maybe
hit
that-
them. Save your pitch count. So
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
notice this until now, but Palante, is this right? 62.5% ground ball rate?
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Goodness
It's
gracious.
insane.
He's
Yeah.
a better version of Hudson.
Yeah.
he is.
I mean,
He is with a developing curveball. And you mentioned that curveball, like he can't. Is he gonna develop that curveball switching back out to the bullpen for this season? I mean, he could, but it seems like the best thing for the team going forward is seeing if Palante can be, a solid starter and leaving him there and letting him expand his repertoire and settle in the major leagues.
Yeah, and there's also the innings issue because how many innings did Hudson throw last year? 8.
20. I was gonna say 20. I'm not sure. Yeah, not very
yeah,
many.
8 and 2
8
It was
and
8.2.
2/3.
Yeah.
And then he had some minor league innings, and they may have made him throw. But I mean, to go from that to 150 innings, I don't know if they want to do that. Palante, I know he threw 99 and then like 20 in the AFL, so you could pretty much just ride him the rest of the year. And
Because he only has like 80, he doesn't even have 100 yet, right? He's under 100.
82,
Like
I believe.
82. Yeah. So he's probably got, especially as the fifth starter, they could skip him a time or two. He
Mhm.
might have another 30 or 40 innings, there. So he'd be well under his cap, I would think.
So I wonder if that plays a role because they could just say, Hudson, we want to manage your innings and not, I don't know, hurt his ego or something.
Yeah.
You know,
do you guys
Well-
actually think that they'll pull the trigger and give Palante the job?
no.
Yeah,
I'm
see,
not
I'm
getting my
there.
hopes up.
I'm going to say yes, just to be different. And the reason
I
don't
think
actually
so, yeah.
believe this. Yeah. Okay. All right. Heather's with me.
All right.
Yeah.
The only reason why I say that is because the one thing we hear from Mozeliak and Marmol over and over again is that if you can't strike guys out, you cannot walk them. And I just feel like they're talking directly to Hudson there. I mean, they see the same things we can. They know about the xFIP. They know about Palante's ERA. They know that they see all that stuff. And they probably more than us know the reasons, the mechanics, why that's happening. And it'd just be really hard for me to see them going at this point in the season with the guy who's not performing, even though he's the more proven guy in this case. I think that ship has sailed now. I think it's time to go with a better guy.
Yeah. I mean, and just to build on that, like, are you really going to pull Palante from the rotation after his last outing? Like, he went
No.
8 shutout innings. It feels like they should give him another chance and kind of let him keep building on that and just see what he has.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who
I
thought
also
Palante would have been in the rotation this year? Did anybody had to see that coming?
I didn't even know he existed, like, as a until he was in the rotation.
Yeah.
I really did not. He was not on my radar.
He got some mention early, and I'm sure that one of us probably made mention of him that he was a dark horse candidate to make the bullpen, maybe
Yeah.
and that was before we brought in guys like Aaron Brooks and Verhagen. When it looked like they might need a little bit of depth, but I don't think anyone saw him being in the rotation. Which kind of speaks to the failure of a whole bunch of other guys, to be honest. So. All right, guys. We've committed a miracle here. We have gone 50 minutes and a name has not been brought up, and it's the only name that has been brought up in connection to the Cardinals for the last week and a half. We've talked about who are Cardinals. We should talk for at least for a minute and torture ourselves about the guy who's not a Cardinal, and that would, of course, be Juan Soto. Did not come to the Cardinals. Anyone surprised by that?
No.
No. I've been telling people, I'm like, that's not going to happen. I could be wrong, preface it with that, but I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. Because we heard at Blogger today about how Mozeliak seemed really not unwilling, whatever one step above unwilling is, to deal Jordan Walker. And I just don't see how they would get Soto without dealing him.
And it
Everyone
looks
was
like
making all these little trade packages and stuff.
Yeah. You
No,
look at
there's
the
no
deal.
way. There's no way they.
Yeah, you look at the deal that the Padres made, and it's really hard to go, back and forth and connect the dots and who's who. But I don't see that there's any way the Cardinals get that done without including Walker in it. Maybe the whole Carlson Gorman, combination might have worked, but they really went for a quantity of minor league players, high end minor league players over, proven major league talent, and it just really, in my opinion, didn't end up becoming that good of a fit with what the Nats wanted and what the Padres offered to what the Cardinals were kind of willing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's what the Nats wanted, I remember at Blogger Day when Mo said that, like, if Mike Trout becomes available, we'll give the Angels a call. But then he also said the Cardinals are a team that rely heavily on building from within, so they're not going to give away 4 or 5 minor league prospects to go get Juan Soto, especially highly rated ones. Like, they're a team that values their farm system. That just felt like it wasn't going to be a great fit.
Yeah,
especially mid-season.
Yeah.
They're maybe in the off season, winter meetings, they do a bigger deal, but they rarely do big trade deadline deals like that. I feel like I can't think of the last one they did, except for Colby Rasmus.
Yeah.
I will say with the Jordan Walker, them being unwilling to move him thing, that I find it curious the timing when they put him in the outfield right after deadline. Like, maybe they're like, we're just going to keep him at third base until we're sure we're not trading him. And then they immediately pivot to outfield because, like, now he is part of our future. So I feel like they may have been kind of willing to trade him in the right circumstance, but probably not with like a bunch of other names.
Yeah.
Like Carlson, for instance.
It's sort of interesting how in one move they basically cleared a path for Walker to the majors and shifted Carlson to, like we were a little skeptical about his center field play, but he would be most valuable if he could play center, for a couple of years. That would be where he would offer the most value to the team as opposed to corner outfield. So Bader's removed. It kind of reminded me a little bit, totally different situation, but a little bit of Pham and Piscotty and Grichuk, how some of these sort of proven players, once they sort of reach the end of their usefulness, the Cardinals are just like, okay, thanks very much. Appreciate you. Off to your hometown. And now, these guys that we've been waiting are going to have their chance. Do you guys think Burleson's going to get a first shot here at right field, or what's going to happen in right field now?
Nootbaar for now.
As a starter for a while, or for the whole season?
He might get like maybe if he starts doing poorly after like a month of regular playing time, they'll shift to Burleson. But if he's continues hitting the way he's been hitting, I don't see them calling up Burleson and making Nootbaar a bench player. Maybe if O'Neill continues to get hurt, though, Burleson has a chance.
They'll give Dickerson a shot out there before they bring Burleson up here this year. I feel like, because Burleson doesn't have to be added to the 40-man for Rule 5 purposes until after next season. I don't think that there's going to be any hurry. And that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see him. I just don't think that they're going to do that. I mean, they signed Dickerson for $5 million. If there's a path for him to play, I think they'll try to get something out of him.
And honestly, Dickerson's been playing better. And I mean, I like Burleson a lot, but it's not to say it's impossible, but you don't really know whether Burleson's going to come up and play better than Dickerson's been playing or not. If you play better than what Dickerson's been the whole season, yeah, probably so. But since the break, Dickerson's been okay, and there's a good chance Burleson comes up for a while and sees major league pitching for the first time, and he's okay, So yeah, the Cardinals aren't one to just make random, roster moves. Is there any clear, easy path, Mike, for Burleson to be added to the 40 right now? It doesn't seem like there is. It seems like they've gotten rid of all of their sort of excess, I don't want to say junk.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, they could. I mean, they could, let's say, for example, they decide that they want to, when they activate Jordan Montgomery, they could DFA TJ McFarland.
Yeah.
And that will give them that'll clear both an active and a 40-man roster spot. They could.
Is Capel still on the 40?
He is.
Okay.
So,
right.
I mean,
but they also need center fielders. So, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the interesting thing is now is that with DeYoung being up here, and there doesn't right now. It's like there's no real playing time, or there's no real path to playing time for Brendan Donovan, who was a mainstay in the lineup for a very long time because of different injuries. So maybe they've decided now that, okay, maybe he was, I don't know what they would really think of him. I don't know. I'd be interested to get your guys' take. Is he overexposed as an everyday player? Because right now, if you look at, because every time the Cards make a bunch of moves, I sort of put in my notes, okay, what is our bench?
Yeah.
And when I look at what they just did, if they're giving Nootbaar the right field job, you've got Kisner, Dickerson, Donovan, and it looks like if now DeYoung at short and Edman at second is going to be the thing, then what you really have is a DH platoon between Gorman and Pujols, and that's your bench.
Yeah.
So
Yepez returning
still
soon.
on the injured list.
Yeah.
So now Yepez comes back, then what?
Yeah.
Are you're gonna option Donovan? That's the only choice, unless you want to fire Dickerson.
Yeah.
Or Nootbaar.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to see how long, I don't know how DeYoung has done today, so I hate to even say, but it's really hard for me to imagine. Maybe I'm overly critical or just a wet blanket here, but really hard for me to imagine that Paul DeYoung's going to be a better hitter over the rest of the season than Brendan Donovan was.
Defensively, they're very different too.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. DeYoung's pretty solid. I think he's a little overrated by fans at shortstop, but he's fine. He's good. Donovan can play a little bit of everywhere, but that walk rate is just something. Yeah. And it really, as much as I like Carlson in the leadoff spot, he doesn't walk 13% of the time. So,
yeah. And DeYoung is 0 for 3, no strikeouts. So
that's good. Well, you can't hit a home run every night. So,
hey, you've still got another chance.
There's still time.
Still time. True. All right. Well, so Soto's not a Cardinal. You guys upset? Should they have done it? Let me put it that way. Our last question. The last two questions. Should they have done it? Are you upset that they didn't? Not surprised. Upset.
No, I mean, I'm not upset. Like, it's a move that I was never really expecting to begin with.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't want Juan Soto, because like, who doesn't want Juan Soto playing on their team? But it feels like the Cardinals probably just improved their team more than they would have with Juan Soto by adding 2 pitchers where there were clearly 2 pitchers that were needed, as opposed to trying to upgrade in right field, which would have been a sizable upgrade itself. But Dickerson and Nootbaar are already hot. It feels like the much bigger need was in pitching. So I'm fine with them just kind of filling gaps and letting the Padres trade away a lot of their farm system for Soto.
Especially if Carlson would have ended up having to go in the trade, which I think it's pretty clear that he would have had to have. I mean, you could think about doing that. I know John LaRue, a writer with Viva Writing, we were talking about a little last night. It's like, hey, you figure it out. Connor Cable for a while, or see what Nootbaar can do. Try Tyler O'Neill, because you don't necessarily want to pass up on that. But it just didn't seem very Cardinals-like to create a big hole in center field with a defense-oriented team, and then to use all resources for a right fielder.
Sounds like
yeah.
Bro.
Just didn't seem like something they were going to do. But what about the rest of you guys? Disappointed?
No, because I didn't even remotely expect it. So it was hard for me to be upset that it didn't happen, because I was just like, I was treating it like, if it happens, great. But if it doesn't, then I'm no skin off my back, because I literally was just telling people, no, it's not going to happen. And then 2, I don't mind it because we got to keep all our great prospects while still improving the team, which is awesome. Which I wouldn't have imagined would be doable necessarily before the trade deadline. If you would have said we would have kept everybody except for Malcolm Nunez and Oviedo, and then I know we lost Bader, but we would have kept every other prospect. And also, we just got 2 average or better starters. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. So I can't be disappointed when that's the trading deadline we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I really want to see Mason win play great shortstop defense and then throw the ball 400 miles per hour or whatever. And then, and then I want to see Jordan Walker. I just want to see him hit. So I'm glad that I don't know why, and I'm not normally attached to prospects so much, but I think because Mozeliak was really high on Walker, especially, I'm like, well, I got to see that guy now. So I'm glad that hopefully, as of now, we'll still get the chance to.
Yeah.
And Soto, I like him, but I have concerns about it, making a big trade at the deadline for any sort of major superstar and how he's going to age. He's kind of a big guy. So I just feel like he might be prone to injury. I don't know. I just have this weird feeling about it where I just don't know that he's going to age very well.
Yeah, and that's the real risk. You use a whole prospect package to get a guy like Juan Soto, a generational talent, whatever you want to say, a Hall of Famer, and then he gets hurt, a couple of years in a row. And suddenly, not only do you not have Gorman or Carlson or whoever or Walker or Wynn, then you also don't have the guy you traded them all for, and you're really sunk at that point.
Yeah, I feel like Gabe does. I didn't believe for one moment that it was going to happen. I didn't even really pay much attention to the hype. Now, part of that is just because, you watch enough of these trade deadlines and you realize what the Cardinals typically do. And unless, it was sort of like an Arenado thing where it was a screwed up front office and you get a bunch of money. I didn't really, not only that, but like, if we had gotten him, there's no way we could have re-signed him. If he turns down 440 mil, that takes us out of even probably half that conversation.
Probably so.
So, how long would we have really had him? And I don't think it would have been worth giving up the years of control we've got with some of those other people that we would have probably had to give up in that deal to make it happen. So I'm pleasantly surprised with what they did this time around. I deep down thought it was going to be more of a patchwork type situation with like another Hap and, maybe another guy like that. But doing what they did, they took it up a notch from those kind of level of pitchers. And I thought that to get anybody that would have moved the needle for us, we were probably have to give up one of our best, non-blocked type prospects. And we didn't end up doing that. So, I give Mo an A on these.
Yeah. That was my last question is grading this deadline. Skyrick is an A. Sounds like Blake, you're also an A.
Yeah, I'm an A too.
Gabe, an A. Heather?
Yeah, I think so. I have to go with the consensus. I'm really bummed to not have Harrison Bader, but it's fine. I'll be fine.
Yeah. They certainly exceeded my expectations. I really thought that they were going to be done after making the Quintana trade. And this last one shocked me. I thought maybe, they started talking about Rich Hill and, I was kind of pointing at Syndergaard, just like, hey, just grab somebody, just someone to throw in there at the end, a rental, someone cheap. But Jordan Montgomery, man, you're going to have him for 2 years, solid guy. It's they did really well. So that's an A for me as well. And like you, Heather, I'm excited about watching Wynn and Walker and Gorman and Carlson and all these guys to see what they can do. And the pitching staff too, Graceffo and McGreevy and, Libertor's now probably the third or fourth best guy in there. Thompson, Skyrick, you mentioned Thompson too. There's a lot of talent there. They're primed to take advantage of this Arenado, Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill window. I don't want to mention Flaherty, but if Flaherty comes back too, you never know. So could be an interesting couple of years. Last thoughts from you guys?
I think we covered everything.
I'm good.
Yadier Molina, he's back.
Yeah. How's he looked today? Any hits or anything? And he thrown in?
He hit into a double play immediately.
Of course he did.
He's back.
Course he did.
It is. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, he's back. Double play.
Not only did he hit into a double play, he looked as slow as I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Hit the ball slowly.
Oh,
He hit the ball slowly to shortstop. Shortstop grabbed it and third to second, and he was out by like 10 steps still.
Yeah.
I think he had to have been running too because he had to know a double play was possible.
Yeah.
His first and third, one out. So,
Welcome back, Yachty. That's That's what we're getting at this point.
He did
So
throw out
my
a
final
runner.
thought. Sorry about that, Gabe.
Sorry, he did throw out a runner too in the first inning. He was strike him out, throw him out with Wainwright and Molina.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Classic Yachty game.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So my final thought would be I think the pennant race going forward with the Brewers is actually going to be now even more exciting. You know, it does look like especially if this DeYoung thing sticks, and who knows if it will, but they must have really believed that, and by pulling the trigger on Soto and doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
If that sticks and these new pitching additions stick, it's going to be a real interesting race because the Brewers, they're about ready to get Freddie Peralta back. They just put him on a rehab assignment. They traded Josh Hader, which, if you take a look at that, is almost like the Cardinals in the middle of being in first place trading Bruce Sutter. But it's just they have a really interesting approach the way they did it. They brought back some interesting pieces, and they also traded for Matt Bush, who they haven't added yet, but will add here in the next day or so. And he's done very well. So, the Brewers pitching injuries in their rotation are just about over. So with our revamped rotation, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. And if we can, the reason we haven't really been able to take advantage of the Brewers is because our offense went into the tank there for a while.
Yeah.
And if we can get that back, I think we can pick up the slack and win the division.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's there for the taking, honestly. But they're going to have to win the games. They've got to put it together. They haven't been able to put it together basically all season. They need to have a run where they do. They don't have to win 17 in a row, but they're going to have to play 600 ball or so for a little while.
I won't complain if they do, though.
No, won't complain. Oh, I probably will complain. I complain. I'm a complainer.
Complain about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, this was fun. I mean, 5 of us on here, but great conversation. And honestly, I don't think I haven't never met Gabe in person or seen you guys or seen what Mike looks like behind all the transactions. So it's great to have the Viva Birdos podcast back, and not the whole crew, but the longest tenured remaining crew here together. This was a lot of fun. And I think we should do this again. Maybe division clinching game. We'll get all together, and maybe in between time we can have a couple of you guys on every now and then and talk about what's happening. So,
good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Yeah, you guys got to see the Leo make an appearance, the cat, and then I think Kane, who has been a longtime co-host on the podcast, who's finally showed his face.
Yeah, we saw a nose there for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people don't for him very much. I've read the comments. Can you shut that dog up? I cannot.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, it was super fun, and all of you listening, you'll see this Wednesday morning early. You can read it or you can listen there in the article, or you can check it out on the YouTube channel, or on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're trying to get it out all of those places. It might take a little while for everything to trickle down, but you should be able to find this and give us a listen tomorrow. But otherwise, for Blake and for Mike and for Gabe and for Heather, happy trade deadline, everyone, and we'll see you again from the VEB podcast. Have a great day.